Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nasser Deeb. I'm the director of Halal Expo Canada, and I'm pleased today to be joined with experts in the halal finance and investment. Uh, and we are here to learn more about how we can invest on a halal way and how we can also finance in a most halal, legitimate way. And we are excited today to be joined with this group. And I'd like to pass it to Zach Muqtadir to take it from there and moderate the session.
Thank you, Nasser, for having me once again. So thanks everyone for joining us for our second webinar focusing on the halal lifestyle, which has been impacted by the recent COVID-19 pandemics. We've got a breadth of experts here and panelists to really shed some light on this. First, I would like to introduce, or my first panelist today is Samir Azam. With over 15 years of experience in the wealth management industry, Samir currently runs a wealth advisory practice at RBC Dominion Securities. His expertise includes investment and retirement planning, tax minimization, halal investing, and charitable giving structuring. He holds a chartered investment manager designation and is also an active member of the Responsible Investment Association of Canada. He currently resides in Oakville with his wife and two daughters. Fun fact about Samir, he's a big fan of Turkish drama series. Resurrection of Ertugrul, and is planning his second trip to Turkey once this pandemic has passed. Secondly, our second panelist is Rehan Saeed. Rehan holds an MBA in Islamic Banking and Finance from the International Islamic University of Malaysia, a Bachelor's of Technology, Information Technology from York University, certified public accountant from Maine, USA. Taught Islamic finance to multinational firms and financial institutions such as Maybank, Kuwait Finance House, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, and others. He's lectured extensively and offered courses at U of T, York University, and McMaster and Centennial College on financial planning. A fun fact about Rehan is that a non-Turk who speaks Turkish and have jumped off the plane a couple of times. No risk, no returns is what he says. So thank you, gentlemen, for being on here. It's an honor, and great to see you guys taking time out this windy Tuesday afternoon. So just a format of how the questions will be assigned is every panelist will get a question, and they will be deep diving into the topic. So the first question is for Rehan, actually. Rehan, thank you for having us. And why is it important to talk about money within the halal lifestyle? So take it away, Rehan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Zach, thank you very much, and Nasser for having me on board. This is indeed a very large topic that we talk about. And money is certainly something that is very important in our deen. It's actually one of the objectives and the maqasid of the Sharia. When we talk about our famous historian Imam al-Ghazali, when he talked about the objectives of our religion, he talked about 5 things: the safeguarding of religion, the safeguarding of life, safeguarding of intellect, the safeguarding of society, and lastly, but not least, wealth. Right? So wealth is something that we need to talk about, especially during this crisis, especially during this, these difficult times that I'm sure Samir will delve into in terms of strategies going to. So even I wanted to bring our attention to something, because we are in the month of mercy, because we are in these times that have been unprecedented before. And we will go into a time in our life or in a journey of our soul where when we will be resurrected. When we're talking about we'll talk about the real resurrection, and there will be 5 questions that every human being will be asked. And 2 out of those 5 questions are regarding al-mal, wealth, right? One of them is, how did you earn it? And number 2 is, how did you spend it? right? So this is basically the foundation or the intention of our webinar is to talk about how we can navigate our lives in living a halal lifestyle. I'm going to stop here and I'll, give it back to you, Zackariya or Samir, to further comment, and we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rehan, for enlightening us and really taking it back to our roots of where it all started from. So that's how where we should really evolve from. So really nicely said there. The second question is for Samir to further enlighten us. And can you elaborate on the difference between the halal investment strategies compared to conventional investing during COVID-19 and the impact on the bottom line?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Zach, and thanks to Nasser for having me here today. It's like Rehan mentioned earlier. It's such a deep topic. So I'm just going to break down a couple of rules, and then I'll get into the bottom line, right? So a little bit focuses on the public markets, the capital markets. So I'm focusing more on investing when I'm explaining this. So see, the number one rules, there's three main rules when you're looking to invest in an ethical halal way. Number one is you're avoiding, excessive debt. You're avoiding interest-based vehicles. Number two is you're avoiding, getting into a transaction that's highly uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty there. And number three is you're trying to avoid excessive speculation. Having a kind of a gambling mentality, right? So you're trying to be more part of the real economy. You're trying to focus on being a partner of these businesses that you invest into. So those are your three main areas that, when you're building when you're looking at the ethical and halal principles, those are your three areas. And just leading into some of the screens or the filters when you're building, and I'll compare it back to conventional way of investing, is some of the screens, some of the filters you're avoiding are things like alcohol and gambling and conventional financial services or weapons. These are type of business you're typically avoiding when you're investing in a halal ethical way, and you're looking at the capital structure of these companies. So you're trying to avoid companies with a lot of debt, companies that have actually collected their revenues, and they've actually collected the cash. It's not just booked into their balance sheets. So these are some principles that we follow, right? And what we've seen is this has led to us is in this environment, these rules have pushed us into companies that have amazing balance sheets. They're great quality. They're actually into innovation. So their sectors are healthcare, technology, e-commerce. So if you notice in this environment right now, right, the last 6 months, that's like say 6 weeks to say 3 months now, where we're in this environment, companies that are not into innovation, that have really a lot of high debt, are actually not performing relative to companies or businesses are actually performing relatively well. So we're seeing a divergence. So what I'm trying to say is, the bottom line is, I think you could still have an impact on the way you invest based on your values, right? You want to follow your values and have some performance. So those are not mutually exclusive. So in a nutshell, we're seeing a divergence because of these rules that we follow.
Thank you, Samir, for that. And I really liked how you sort of explained the last component of how these rules have been divergent. And I want to sort of expand on that later on as we further discuss this. I'm going to throw the ball back to Rehan now and get his insights on what are the special measures introduced by the government currently during the COVID-19 times in relation to home and business owners. Any specifics to those in the halal financing space?
Very good question, Zach. The measures that are in there by our government are, they are definitely there to assist and continue the economy flowing. And one of the main things that is part of our necessities is shelter, roofing, housing, right? And the housing market, the government has introduced measures called the deferrals for the mortgage payments, right? For the house payments. So they've given up to 6 months, they've commission the banks to allow up to 6 months of deferral payments. So mind you, this is not a relief payment, but this is some sort of a deferral, while we're going through this turbulent, unprecedented time. They're allowing everything to delay. And then now we're seeing that sort of trend come into the rental part of it. So the people that are not homeowners going into the same thing. When it comes to Islamic finance is actually no different in terms of people who are delaying, who are indebted. And the ruling for the people who are indebted, you should give them more time. This is a verse in Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 280, right? It says if people are indebted and they cannot pay you, give them more time. And then further on, it goes in and says, if you forgive them, it is better for you. So, Islam is always a religion of excellence that allows us to supersede our behavior in terms of dealings with people, right? So this is, and even with some of the Islamic financial institutions, one of them that I've worked with, very closely, and they do offer deferral payments as well. It's not a relief, but it's a deferral. I guess they will change their rules as the time goes by, and they'll see what type of relief there is available out there. And when it comes to businesses, the government is offering interest-free loans, which is halal to begin with. I encourage every business, in case they do need it, to go and pursue this loan. And they even are actually not only giving you this loan, but they're also giving you a relief, a portion of that loan, which is pretty much, if you translate it, it becomes money that is yours to keep due to this financial hardship. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, it definitely does, actually. And I think that's what a lot of the audiences are really looking at is, this loan that's being offered from the government, is it halal? Haram. I think you really great light on it for businesses to be encouraged to go apply and utilize the service that's been provided to us. So the other thing is, in these unprecedented times, Samir, this is a question for yourself, is with the recent extreme volatility in the markets as we see, how has this impacted the emotions of investors and their decision-making capacity?
Oh, that's a great question, Zach. So, I mean, as businesses, people who are, involved in their businesses, that's what they do, right? That's their livelihood. It's really personal to, businesses, business owners, corporations, families who invest their money into the economy, into the equity market. So it is an emotional thing. So I never say, how you hear sometimes, when you're in business or, don't make it personal, take out the emotions. I think as us being humans, right, we're not robots, right, yet, and I'm just kidding. But, it's all about having some of those emotions there. But at the end, what we've seen is, let's give you an example, right? In March, we had a nice run up to the markets. And then, actually February, and you start to see the stock markets, which are usually kind of ahead of the economy. They try to look at the not to say a future, but they try to see next 3 to 6 months. They had a huge drawdown, which they went down almost up to 30 to 35%, depending on where you are. And some parts of the world, probably more than that. So we saw investors, some investors probably stayed in the market, some sold, and then you had a huge rally run up in April. So you could see, I'm just talking about the stock markets, but on a macro level, you've been seeing gold and you see all these other asset classes. So just to kind of hammer home, the impact has been tremendous, right? Because people are now, worried about what their future is going to look like, how they're going to be able to provide for their families. So these are big questions. There's still some uncertainty. So, over time, just to kind of just hammer home the question is, over time, you've seen when things go up, when things are doing amazing, usually investors and businesses get excited and they take it all the way to the top, right? And then when things start to come down, people get, there's panic, there's fear. So it's kind of like a roller coaster effect when you're investing. So typically, a lot of times, if you're able to stay invested and invest in, quality businesses, or even if you're a business owner, making sure you have reserves, right? Protect yourself, right? So then, if you're disciplined and you understand the business you're in, and that's what we're kind of just going back to relating. Investing in a halal or ethical way, you become a business owner. So you do your homework, you understand the businesses you're in. So some of that emotion, inshallah, can come off as long as you're disciplined and understand. So you're not panic selling on the bottom and you're excited and buying things on the top, right? So I think in relation, if you have a disciplined strategy, I think inshallah it takes away some of the emotions, but to take away 100% the emotions is very hard, right? So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does, Samir. And these are unprecedented times, and like you said it really well there. Really taking the business out, really taking the emotions out of when you're dealing with a transaction, a business transaction is pivotal. It's so important, and that applies to any sort of businesses, whether you're in the finance space or the healthcare space. And that's, I think, you find more fruitful results that come out of it when you take the emotions out of it. And as humans, it's actually hard for us to remove those emotions. That's really well said, and thank you for those thoughts there. Rehan, this next question is for you, actually. So can you give us a 101 and the difference between halal banking and slash financing compared to conventional banking slash financial?
Okay, we'll try in the few minutes that we have. We have a whole course which goes on for 20 hours that talks about 101 on Islamic banking and finance. But really, if you do attend enough courses in this area, you'll always come to a theme that they start with, right? Which is an ayah from the Quran, the Holy Quran, to the closest meaning. It says Allah has permitted trade or bay and forbidden usury, riba, right? That's the beginning of the distinction. On 101 on Islamic finance. So talking about trade versus riba. So even as Brother Samir, he mentioned, when we go into halal investing and financing, we look at the sectors that we should avoid to begin with, right? And then we should look at the ones that are profitable. So we look at the bottom line after we filter and carve out our, area of focus, right? So in our deen, in halal versus haram, there's an axiom in Islamic law specifically for contracts. It's called everything is permissible unless specifically prohibited. This is for acts of mu'amalat or transactional law. That means everything Allah has provided to us. For example, in terms of food, we can eat anything and everything we want except what Allah has specifically prohibited. Right? Same thing goes with Islamic finance or banking, or when it comes to dealing with wealth. We go into the sectors that are, we start with the prohibitions. For example, riba, right? Interest or usury. For example, Imar al-Maisir, which is gambling, games of chance. And then, we can go into further analogies like we cannot sell or trade in something that we cannot consume. For example, if I cannot eat pork, then I cannot trade in pork-related activities. If I cannot consume alcohol, I cannot trade or consume or sell these types of activities, right? So that's basically a 101 that I can come to. And then really in these times, I would go into honoring our contracts, go back to the basics, right? The first verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah in the Quran, chapter 5, verse number 1 says, "O you who believe, honor, fulfill your contracts," right? So let's start beginning by fulfilling our contracts. Let's make promises that we can keep, right? Because our Prophet, ﷺ, he told us that if you have any of these qualities, you are close to the hypocrites, which have the lowest level of hellfire, right? So, and to go into them really simply, the one who lies when he speaks, right? The one who keeps the promise and then he breaks it, the one who gets into a debate but becomes argumentative, right? And insults you. So these are the ones that we have a problem with, right? So we need to take precautions, go back to the basics, become good human beings, right? In these times, especially in this month of mercy, and on top of this, these times, to go back to the 101. So, alhamdulillah, it's very easy to stick to 101. Be a good human being, honor your contracts, pay your workers their wages before the sweat dries. This is actually a hadith. And avoid the prohibitions. And we can go into more detail. And Samir has a nice list that he can show us in PowerPoint. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much, Rehan, for that beautiful enlightenment there. I personally, see this on a regular basis when you're dealing sometimes with the opposite vendor or individual, you're constantly, battling, you always want to beat the truth, always want to present the truth, always want to be honest, but you always sense from the other side, like where you sense resistance, you sense that the person is not being honest or not honoring your contract or perhaps lowballing your deal. And then that's always a challenge as a halal business Muslim owner to tackle and be in your right lane and follow the adherence to what we believe in and what our real roots and what has been said in Nadeem. So thank you for shedding light on that. I completely validate and see where you're coming from. We have a last final question. And this is an open question for everyone. Could you both, or any one of you, provide us some beneficial tips on how to better financially plan during this crisis? So open question, either of you two can take that.
Rehan, you want to go for it, or?
Samir, please be my guest. You start.
Zach, a really good question, and actually, it's actually becomes more important during these times that we're going through. So I'm just going to kind of give you a couple of pointers. So number one is have a plan, have a financial plan, or just having a roadmap, right? I use this analogy all the time. Is if I need to go to a destination from A to B in today's time, I will grab my phone, look at my GPS and get to my destination. So if you don't have a roadmap in regards to whatever you're doing, you're a business owner, you're retired, your family or an individual, whatever you're trying to do is make sure you have a plan, like a strategy, even if it could be just simple as some projections. Put it down on paper and just project it out. So that's number one, having a plan. If you don't, you're going to come back. If you don't have a GPS, you're going to come back to your destination, back to point A, and you're going to maybe waste a lot of time, money, and effort, right? So that's number one. Number two is, as you know, a lot of Canadians will be filing their taxes, right? As you know, one of the measures was to move the filing your income taxes, your personal income taxes, to June 1st, right? So it's coming up. So, but what we recommend is do tax planning. Tax planning is a year-round event rather than just tax filing. Unfortunately, all of us just do tax filing. We're going to, scramble last minute and try to figure it out. And I pretty much tell you, when I'm sitting down with our clients, there's a lot of things we uncover where people just miss out on. So try to tax plan, not tax file only, right? Number three is, as you know, during these times, I would say having a will and a power of attorney is so important, right? It's mentioned so many times, and it's mentioned that, if you made a decision, don't wait 2 days till you write down a will and get a power of attorney. So while you're living, so as you know, we don't know how long we're going to be here, right? So making sure your wishes are constructed based on your family's, what you're going to leave behind for your family. Number four, I would say, is having an emergency fund. Right? Really important, right? Because you don't know what could happen. As you know, we went through this pandemic. You could be a business owner at no fault of yours. Your whole business was in a certain industry where people need to come see you. Now it's not happening. So having an emergency fund anywhere from 3 to 9 months of your expenses, I would highly recommend. going forward, right? Really important. Number five, I would say is diversify your money, diversify your investments, right? And have a disciplined strategy, right? Make sure if you're a business owner, move some of your equity into different asset classes. So that way, if something happens to your business, then you can draw from those other investments, right? And of course, make sure you keep it halal, right? The other one I would say is it's not always, a lot of people I've been hearing is, Samir, when's the best time to buy? When's the best time to sell? So it's not really timing the market. It's actually time in the market that builds wealth. And as long as you invest in quality, believe in your conviction, you have a process, then you look, when there's crisis, you look for opportunities, right? So I would say, and lastly, I would say is in this month of mercy, as Rehan mentioned, is give back, right? Really important. There's so many vulnerable people in our community, right? So if you're fortunate to have some wealth during these times, right? And if it's been a little bit easy for you, make sure you help people in our communities, in our broad communities, wherever you can. It could be voluntary or monetary, because that's really important. And I just want to mention, because we're in the month of Ramadan, and a lot of people are going to be paying their zakat during this time. The person who's receiving zakat, right? It's great they're receiving your zakat in Ramadan, but I would recommend, give zakat throughout the year, because that person throughout there, right? So even if it's small portions, but if it's consistent, it's an amazing thing. So I would say these would be my, top 6 or top 7 financial tips during these times and moving forward, of course. Thank you, Zach.
All right, thank you, Samir. Really nicely broken down. I think one thing that we could definitely provide to our listeners is perhaps like a breakdown or an infographic that really, top 10 or top 5 things to do in these crises, because I think it's super important to have like a cheat sheet with you, and you can always refer back to. So that's something that we can definitely take upon for our listeners to further engage with this conversation. Rehan, any thoughts on that? And touching base on what Samir just talked about.
No, Samir, thank you. Although me and Samir have been friends for a while, but it's always a good refresher to connect with him and to get some tips from him. But really, he said it nicely. But if we were to top it off, we should do a few things. We all know about tying the camel. So when you work in this world and go seek the wealth, the bounties of Allah, then you're tying your camel. Then you make dua, you perform acts of try to aspire to be like our Prophet ﷺ. Even before he was a prophet, he had 2 qualities that were mentioned about him. He was a Sadiq and he was al-Amin, right? Trustworthy. So let's try to aspire to that. And then what really brings it all down to the ground for us is this beautiful hadith Qudsi, which talks about our risk, our wealth, our sustenance. Whenever we think about halal or haram, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote down our sustenance. When? Not today, not yesterday, not the day we were born, not in our mother's womb, but He wrote down our risk 50,000 years before He created the heavens and the earth. The only thing He gave you is the choice of choosing halal or haram. If you will not die till you eat your last penny, eat your last meal, if you will not die till you earn your last penny, then why choose the haram way? Let's keep it halal.
Thank you, Rehan and Samir, for this wonderful enlightenment and walking us through this journey of differences between conventional banking and halal investments. How do you deal with your emotions in this volatility? Difference of halal financing, what measures do you take? And also really topping it up with what our basics and our essence of our deen is, tracing it back to our Prophet ﷺ and what our deen says. So Rehan, thank you so much for those final words there. I'm going to pass the mic over to Nasser to give us any final takeaways, final thoughts as we go about day-to-day lives. Nasser, I'm going to pass it on to you now.
Actually, I'm still trying to digest a lot of information that I've learned from from the panelists, and it's interesting that we have a good line of experts to help us out understand this halal finance and investment. Before I end up this, I have maybe a couple of questions to the panelists, if it's okay, if the time permits. Zach, I just wanted to ask one about from person perspective. If someone like myself or anybody else, you know, was kind of forced unknowingly went into a bank finance, like a conventional banking finance for his house, like a mortgage, for example. And what advice you give them, like especially if their terms with the finance about to expire in very shortly, will they be able to switch it to halal financing? Is there any ways that it can, any mechanism, any ways that with a minimum loss or minimum cost implication that can be done or can be implemented? And that's to Rehan.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It can be for anyone, but since you asked me, you know, inshallah, all the scholars, we've had this situation come up many times. You know, we do live in this world of riba. This is the truth. We all are in some way, shape, or form part of this system, whether we like it or not. Allah protect us and our families from riba, you know, haram income, inshallah. Right? But all the scholars, whenever, I'm not a scholar, I'm a student, but all the scholars, whenever you whenever you want to get out of it, the first thing you do is you make the intention, the niyyah. Ya Allah, help me. And you know, I want to get out of it. I've made a mistake. I need your help. Number two, you start making an effort, and you make a gradual effort, right? Don't just say, I'm gonna stop paying credit card bills. I'm gonna go into bankruptcy. Don't make a drastic or extreme decision. You know, number three, reach out to the Islamic finance companies that are out there. You know, I understand that there are limited options, but they are nevertheless they are there, and do ask them for options when you can refinance, and you know, plan it, because if people are in their mortgages at this time, they generally have a timeline that they follow. It's usually a 3 to 5 year timeline, and then it starts to expire. And if you break it in between, sometimes you pay a hefty penalty. You know, number four, if you can afford it, go for it. If you cannot afford it, then make an intention and a plan. You know, Samir, as he mentioned, almost at every point, have a budget, have a plan. You know, make a plan on getting out of sin, right? And if we cannot get out of the mortgages at this time, let's make the niyyah today and a plan today that we make sure that we don't pay riba to the little things like our phone bills. If we don't pay it on time, we'll be paying interest. If we don't pay our credit card bills on time, we'll be paying interest. If we don't pay, you know, even our taxes on time, we'll be charged with interest, right? So let's try to start avoiding, take baby steps. And there are definitely options that are out there, Brother Nasser, that you can take in avoiding it, inshallah. And if you have equity built in your home and if you have debts, then there's another way, we call it refinancing in a halal way. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna follow up with you on that on a one-on-one. Help you can help me out and help a lot of people that been you know, moving to this world and trying to juggle between different expenses, between mortgages and, as you said, credit cards and all these things that sometimes you're, as much as you're trying to avoid them, but sometimes you're forced in that situation, unfortunately. And you're right, the niyyah should be there, and we should always try to find a way. My other question, you were mentioning about the 40,000 or whatever, the loan from the government that's interest free. So you're basically saying that as long as within the 2 year, within the allowed area, or to pay it back without the interest, is considered kind of like halal financing. Is this something, because it's no interest charged?
So You're putting me on the spot here.
No, I just because I mean a lot of people have that question, like they don't want to take the loan because of the fact that it's haram, you know. It's so I just wanted to clarify that.
So, so the technical part, I'll tell you. So look, you have a credit card, Nasser? Yes.
Yes, unfortunately, I travel, so I have to have a credit card.
Most of us do.
We all do. We all do.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a gas coming into your house, water,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
utilities. Okay, so here you have signed a contract, and within the contract there are terms and conditions, and one of them is if you pay late, then we'll charge you a penalty or interest. Right?
Yes.
This part of the contract is called sadadari. It's a haram element within the contract, but it does not nullify the whole contract if it's not triggered, right? So, and we live in these times where everything is sort of karma and confusion. And whenever we go into even to the stock market, we're looking at, debt to equity ratio. We're looking at companies with leverage that the scholars have allowed. They say otherwise you don't live in space, you don't live on the mountains, right? So having this spirit in mind, the loan that you are seeking from the government, and with the intention that you can naturally pay it off within that 2 year period. If you can pay it off within that 2 year period, inshallah, by all means, go ahead and take it. This is what has been advised to us. I'm not a scholar, I'm a student, but this is what is understood. It is interest free for 2 years, no different than a credit card. If you pay it within its 30-day or 23-day limit, it becomes interest free, permissible for you to use. Allah knows best, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I don't know, Zach, if we have another couple of minutes to share. I know we have to finalize this very quickly, if you allow me. Just a quick question to Samir. Samir, you, when we were chatting before about investing on the stock market, or like in the if we have somebody has a little money like put aside and they're looking to invest, you mentioned that there are areas now, despite the slowdown and the crisis, there are a lot of opportunities in some in a few sectors that people can leverage from. So if you can enlighten us with this and give us more clarity, a quick I'm sorry to say a bit brief, and then we can follow up with you on later with a Q&A with on the post of the video. So can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Really good question, Nasser. So what we're seeing in this market is, just because of the trend of technology, innovation, healthcare, everything moving online. As you know, I'm doing this this call here, this meeting from my living room, right? So as you know, where we're seeing companies have been trying to adapt this, they're hoping that the next 3 to 4 years people will move into this, you could see, I call it the new economy, right? You're seeing that everything being crammed in the next 3-4 months and the last month or so. So you're seeing a lot of companies, a lot of businesses that had the online exposure, or they had innovation, and they're focusing on artificial intelligence, or cloud and data gathering, and especially also in the healthcare area, right? You're starting to see a lot of opportunities there. A lot of companies are thriving in this environment. So with with crisis, there's some opportunities. So that's where we're seeing a lot innovation. And the old economy, like the traditional energy, and some of the the mall businesses, and businesses that were not focused moving into the online side of things, they're not thriving as much, right? And of course, travel's been affected, and we'll see how that plays. But that's where we're seeing a lot of opportunities right now.
So this is great opportunity for our Muslim brothers who want to invest in a halal way. I guess it's a great opportunity for them for the halal investment, I would say, at this stage, particularly on the wealth management area, right?
Yes, you're 100% accurate.
Great. So I just wanted to, on the behalf of Halal Expo Canada, I would like to thank you so much, guys, for enlightening us with a lot of information that we need to learn about and we need to cope up with in the current crisis. I also hope that we will all gather again at the upcoming Halal Expo Canada in September 17 to 19. This will be also a conference where I think halal finance investment will be one of the key topics that will be discussed during the conference. I hope we can learn more as we go. You guys have been amazing, and I thank you for that. For myself, and I take it to you, Zach, for the closing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barakallah Fikum, Samir and Rehan. I'm Baraka in this gathering and this knowledge session that we've had, and it actually brings value to our customers in all levels, and whether they're considering or they're in the process or they are considering to moving into other better halal worth options. It's a small space. It's a close-knit community. So definitely reach out to these experts, Samir and Rehan and Nasser, who can guide and perhaps even pivot our audiences in the right direction if they have been misled. If they are, like Rehan said it really well, first and foremost is to make that intention and to make those prayers that if you have been misguided or if you have committed the mistake of going into the direction of riba, ask to take you out of it and reach out to the right individuals who can further guide you and take you on this positive journey of following the halal lifestyle. So once again, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out on a busy Tuesday afternoon, and I'm going to return the rest of the time back to you folks, and stay tuned for our next session. Thank you, Nasser, for having me, and see you guys soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.